Eli Turner adjusted the straps of his gear nervously, his heart pounding against his chest like a drumbeat in a frantic parade. The high-tech genetic modification lab buzzed with activity, a cacophony of beeping machines, clinking glassware, and the murmur of scientists deep in concentration. It was late afternoon in the heart of the metropolis, and the sunlight streamed through the large windows, casting sharp shadows across the room. Despite the seriousness of the work being conducted, there was an undercurrent of absurdity, a testament to the eccentric minds that populated the facility. Eli glanced over at Dr. Lila Hart, the lead geneticist, who was meticulously adjusting a bizarre apparatus that looked suspiciously like a cross between a microscope and a coffee maker. She was humming a tune that sounded suspiciously like "Under the Spider's Web," a song Eli was certain she had made up herself. He couldn't help but smirk. "You know, Doc, if I end up stuck in here with my webs, you might want to invent a spider-proof mug." Dr. Hart didn't look up, but her voice carried a playful reprimand. "Funny, Eli. Very funny. Just make sure your enhancements don't interfere with the mission. We need you in top form." Eli chuckled, feeling a bit more at ease despite the looming tension. As a member of the Human Spider Unit, his abilities were both a gift and a curse. Enhanced agility, the ability to climb walls, and, most notably, the capacity to produce webbing at will. It was all very cool until a malfunction turned your most useful tool into a party trick. Just as Eli was beginning to relax, a sudden surge of energy pulsed through his body. His spider senses, usually so reliable, went haywire. Without warning, he began to spin an actual web, one that shot out from his wrists with alarming speed. The lab erupted into chaos as the sticky strands tangled around lab equipment, ceiling vents, and, most hilariously, Dr. Hart's favorite coffee mug, which dangled precariously from a filament. "Eli, control your powers," Dr. Hart exclaimed, finally turning to see her prized mug ensnared in the mess. Her expression was a mix of frustration and amusement. Eli struggled to stop the webbing, his cheeks flushing with embarrassment. "Guess I finally got a webbed hand for holding things," he quipped, trying to lighten the mood despite the sticky situation. Dr. Hart rolled her eyes but couldn't suppress a smile. "Just try to keep your webs to the designated areas, okay?" Before Eli could respond, the heavy metal door to the lab burst open. Agent Marcus Reed strode in, his uniform impeccably pressed, his expression stern. He was the epitome of military precision, a stark contrast to the quirky scientists surrounding him. "Listen up, everyone," Reed announced, his voice cutting through the lingering laughter and exasperation. "The genetic war has officially begun. All units, prepare for immediate deployment." Eli's heart skipped a beat. The humorous mishap was abruptly overshadowed by the gravity of the situation. The genetic war, a clandestine global conflict where nations had raced to develop genetically enhanced soldiers, was no longer just a rumor. It was real, and the battlefield was now the world. Reed approached Eli, his gaze intense. "Turner, you and your team are up. We need the Human Spider Unit to engage the enemy and secure any intelligence on their genetic modifications." Eli took a deep breath, steadying himself. The transition from a light-hearted moment to high-stakes action was jarring, but he knew there was no time to dwell. "Understood, sir," he replied, trying to mask his anxiety with determination. As Reed briefed the team, Eli couldn't help but glance around at his fellow soldiers. Each one had been infused with different genetic enhancements, making them formidable in their own right. There was Maya, whose chameleon-like camouflage made her nearly invisible; Jake, with the strength and resilience of a gorilla; and Zara, whose enhanced senses could detect minute changes in the environment. The mission was clear: infiltrate the enemy stronghold, retrieve any intelligence on their genetic advancements, and neutralize any threats. The stakes were high. If the enemy managed to develop a superior genetic weapon, it could tip the scales of the war irreversibly. As the team geared up, Eli couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. He had been with the Human Spider Unit long enough to trust his instincts, and today, Those instincts were tingling much like his enhanced senses warning him of impending danger. The transport vehicle ride to the mission site was tense. The team sat in silence, each member lost in their thoughts. Eli stared out the window, watching the cityscape blur into the distance. Memories of his past life as a parkour enthusiast flickered through his mind. The agility that had once been a hobby was now a critical asset in their missions. He wondered how different things might have been if the genetic war had never started, if he hadn't become a part of this extraordinary unit. They arrived at the outskirts of the enemy territory under the cover of darkness. The stronghold loomed ahead, a fortress of reinforced concrete and high-tech defenses. Eli felt a surge of adrenaline as the team prepared to move out. This was at the moment they had trained for, the mission that could change the course of the war. Remember, stay sharp and watch each other's backs, Maya reminded the team, her voice calm and focused. We don't know what we're up against. Eli nodded, his mind focused on the task at hand. They moved silently through the shadows, their movements synchronized and precise. As they approached the perimeter, Eli's spider senses kicked in, alerting him to the presence of enemy soldiers patrolling the area. He signaled to the team, and they halted, crouching low to the ground. Maya took point, her camouflage rendering her nearly invisible as she scouted ahead. Eli could feel the tension building, the weight of the mission pressing down on him. He focused on his breathing, centering himself, ready to utilize his abilities to their fullest. Suddenly, a motion to Eli's left caught his eye. Enemy soldiers, visibly enhanced with various genetic traits, were approaching their position. Eli's heart raced as he assessed the threat. These weren't ordinary soldiers, they were part of the enemy's elite genetic units, each with their own unique abilities. Engage. Reed's voice crackled through the earpiece, cutting through Eli's thoughts. Eli sprang into action, his body moving with fluid grace. He launched a web towards an incoming soldier, the sticky strands binding the enemy's movements and knocking them off balance. Maya vanished into the shadows, striking from unexpected angles, while Jake used his immense strength to incapacitate multiple foes with powerful blows. Zara's heightened senses allowed her to anticipate enemy movements, providing invaluable support. The battle was intense, each side pushing their enhancements to the limit. Eli felt the thrill of combat, the rush of adrenaline coursing through his veins. His webbing proved invaluable, providing both offensive and defensive capabilities. He swung from walls, disarming enemies, and creating barriers to protect his teammates. Amid the chaos, Eli noticed something unusual: a figure moving with unnatural speed, dodging attacks effortlessly. It was Derek Shaw, a member of their unit who had gone missing weeks ago. Panic surged through Eli. Derek was supposed to be on their side, not the enemy's. Derek? Eli called out, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. Derek smirked, his eyes filled with malice. Surprise, Eli. Didn't expect to see me here, did you? Eli's confusion turned to anger. What's going on, Derek? Why are you with them? Derek's expression hardened. You always did have a way with words. Let's just say I found a better way to utilize my enhancements. Before Eli could respond, Derek lunged at him, the two former teammates engaging in a fierce duel. Their enhanced abilities clashed, webs flying, strength meeting agility in a deadly dance. The rest of the team continued to fight, unaware of the personal conflict unfolding between Eli and Derek. As the battle raged on, Eli managed to gain the upper hand, using his webbing to immobilize Derek. But instead of delivering a final blow, Eli hesitated, conflicted by the sight of his former friend now turned enemy. Derek sneered, struggling against the webbing. Don't make this personal, Eli. It's not like you were a great friend anyway. Eli's grip tightened, a mix of frustration and sorrow in his eyes. You don't have to do this, Derek. We can find another way. But Derek was resolute. There is no other way. This war is bigger than both of us. Before Eli could respond, the enemy forces began to retreat, signaling a strategic withdrawal. The team regrouped, bruised but victorious, and began securing the perimeter. Mission accomplished, Reed announced, his tone betraying a hint of relief. "Let's head back." As they made their way out of the stronghold, Eli couldn't shake the encounter with Derek. Questions swirled in his mind. How had Derek ended up on the enemy's side? What were their true motives in this genetic war? Back at the base, the team debriefed, sharing their findings and experiences. The intelligence they retrieved indicated that the enemy was developing a prototype genetic weapon, a hybrid of multiple enhancements, making it more dangerous and unpredictable. This discovery underscored the urgency of their mission and the need for continued vigilance. Eli found himself sitting alone, staring at the flickering images on the screen displaying the mission's footage. Derek's betrayal weighed heavily on him. He knew that the genetic enhancements were powerful, but to turn against his own kind required a deeper understanding of Derek's motivations. Determined to get to the bottom of it, Eli sought out Dr. Hart. She was poring over data in her cluttered office, surrounded by a myriad of scientific instruments and half-finished experiments. "Dr. Hart," Eli began, his voice hesitant. "Can we talk about Derek? What's going on with him?" Dr. Hart looked up, her eyes tired but compassionate. "Eli, Derek's case is complicated. The genetic enhancements can amplify not just physical abilities, but also emotions and psychological traits. It's possible that his personality was altered in ways we didn't anticipate." Eli frowned, trying to process the information. "Is there any way to reverse it? To bring him back?" Dr. Hart sighed, leaning back in her chair. "We're still researching. The genetic modifications are intertwined with the subject's DNA. Reversing them isn't straightforward, and even if we could, there's no guarantee Derek would want to return to who he was before." Eli felt a pang of sadness. "I just can't believe he would do this. He was one of us." Dr. Hart placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Genetic enhancements are a double-edged sword, Eli. They grant incredible abilities, but they also come with unforeseen consequences. We need to stay focused on our mission and support each other through these challenges." Eli nodded, taking comfort in her words. As he left her office, he couldn't help but wonder what other secrets the genetic war held and how deep the rabbit hole truly went. Days turned into weeks as the war intensified. Missions became more frequent, each one more dangerous than the last. The human spider unit faced a variety of genetically enhanced adversary soldiers with the camouflage of cephalopods, the strength of elephants, the speed of cheetahs. Each mission was a test of their skills, teamwork, and resilience. Eli found himself growing closer to his teammates, sharing stories and laughter during brief moments of downtime. Maya's ability to blend into any environment made her a master of stealth, while Jake's brute strength was invaluable in direct confrontations. Zara's heightened senses were a constant asset, often detecting threats long before anyone else could. Despite the camaraderie, the shadow of Derek's betrayal loomed over the team. Trust was fragile, and Eli struggled with the fear that there might be other traitors among them. Every new mission carried the weight of uncertainty, and the pressure was beginning to take its toll. One evening, as the team gathered for a strategy meeting, Reed addressed the group with a grave expression. "We've received intel about a new enemy faction, Gentech. They're developing a new breed of genetic soldiers, more advanced than anything we've seen before. Our next mission is to infiltrate their main facility and gather intelligence on their latest enhancements." Eli felt a chill run down his spine. Gentech was known for their ruthless experiments and lack of ethical boundaries. This mission was crucial, but it also meant facing some of the most formidable opponents they had ever encountered. "We need to be prepared," Reed continued. "This facility is heavily guarded, both physically and digitally. Expect advanced security measures and potentially unknown genetic modifications." As the team absorbed the information, Eli couldn't help but feel a sense of déjà vu. Each mission seemed to raise the stakes higher, pushing them to their limits. He glanced around at his teammates, seeing the same mixture of determination and apprehension mirrored in their eyes. "Any specific targets we're looking for?" Eli asked, trying to gather as much information as possible. Reed shook his head. All we know is that they're working on something big. Your mission is to infiltrate, gather as much data as you can, and get out safely. Minimal engagement unless absolutely necessary." The room fell silent as the weight of the mission settled in. Eli felt a familiar knot of anxiety tightening in his stomach, but he also felt a surge of determination. They had faced impossible odds before, and they would do it again. Over the next few days, the team underwent intense preparation. They studied maps of Genteca's facility, analyzed previous mission data, and honed their abilities to perfection. Eli spent hours practicing his web-slinging techniques, ensuring that his movements were precise and efficient. The nights were long, filled with strategizing and anticipating every possible scenario. Finally, the day of the mission arrived. The team gathered in the briefing room, their gear meticulously checked and double-checked. Reed gave them a final nod, his expression resolute. "Remember, stealth is your best friend. Avoid unnecessary confrontations, and focus on your primary objective. We're counting on you." Eli felt a surge of adrenaline as they made their way to the extraction point. The transport vehicle glided silently through the night, the cityscape fading into the distance as they approached the enemy territory. The facility loomed ahead, a monolithic structure surrounded by high walls and patrolled by heavily armed guards. As they disembarked, Eli led the way, his spider senses attuned to every movement and sound around him. Maya took point, blending seamlessly into the shadows, while Jake and Zara flanked him, their presence providing both strength and support. They approached a maintenance entrance, the perfect point of entry. Eli used his webbing to silently unlock the door, the strands pulling and weaving with practiced ease. The team slipped inside, moving like shadows through the dimly lit corridors. The interior of the facility was a maze of hallways and secure rooms, each one more fortified than the last. Eli felt the tension mounting, every step bringing them closer to their goal and potentially closer to danger. As they navigated the complex, they encountered their first line of defense: enemy soldiers with advanced camouflage abilities. These adversaries blended seamlessly into their surroundings, making them nearly invisible until they chose to reveal themselves. The team moved cautiously, using Zara's heightened senses to detect their presence before engaging. A fierce skirmish erupted, webs flying, strength clashing against agility. Eli's spider abilities shone as he swung from the ceilings, using his webs to disarm and disable the enemies with swift precision. Maya moved like a ghost, striking from unexpected angles, while Jake used his brute force to incapacitate the foes. Zara's keen senses guided their movements, ensuring they stayed one step ahead. After neutralizing the initial threat, the team pressed deeper into the facility, their determination unwavering. They reached a central hub, a high-tech control room filled with monitors and servers. Eli approached a console, his fingers flying over the controls as he began to extract data. "Got something," he whispered, eyes scanning the rapidly downloading information. "Looks like they're working on a hybrid genetic enhancement combining multiple traits to create soldiers with unprecedented abilities." Reed's voice crackled through the earpiece. "Good work, Turner. We need that data. Stay focused and get out safely." Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the facility, the red lights flashing ominously. "We've been detected," Reed warned. "Exfiltrate immediately." Panic surged through the team as the facility went into lockdown. Enemy forces began converging on their location, genetically enhanced soldiers pouring into the control room. Eli's heart raced as he scanned for an escape route. "There's a ventilation shaft up ahead," Maya pointed out, her voice calm despite the chaos. "It should lead us to the outside." Eli nodded, already formulating a plan. "We need to move, now. Use your webs to create a path." The team sprang into action, navigating through the chaotic corridors as enemy soldiers closed in. Eli led the way, his webbing providing both offense and defense. He swung across gaps, disarming enemies with precision, while Maya and Jake handled the heavy combat. Zara's enhanced senses kept them aware of incoming threats, allowing them to dodge and counterattack with agility. As they neared the ventilation shaft, Eli felt a surge of determination. They had come too far to fail now. With a final push, they reached the shaft, and Eli used his webs to secure the entrance behind them, creating a barrier against the pursuing enemies. Quickly, get in, Eli urged, helping his teammates into the cramped space. They crawled through the ventilation system, the air thick with tension and the metallic scent of the facility. Eli's spider senses were on high alert, every sound amplified as they made their way towards the exit. Finally, they emerged into the cool night air, the city lights twinkling in the distance. They had made it out, but the mission was far from over. As they regrouped at the extraction point, Reed awaited them, his expression a mix of relief and concern. "Good job," he said, nodding in approval. "But we need to analyze that data immediately. There's no time to waste." As the team debriefed, Eli couldn't help but reflect on the mission's success and the lingering questions about Derek's betrayal. The genetic war was evolving, and so were the threats they faced. But amidst the chaos and uncertainty, one thing was clear: Eli and his team were at the forefront of this battle, fighting not just for survival, but for the future of humanity itself. The journey was far from over, and Eli knew that the challenges ahead would test them in ways they couldn't yet imagine. But with his team by his side and his spider abilities at his disposal, he felt ready to face whatever the genetic war threw their way. Eli leaned back in his chair, exhaustion etched into every line of his face. The room was dimly lit, the hum of computers and the soft murmur of his teammates filling the space as they pored over the data they had extracted from Gentekka's facility. The screen before him displayed a complex web of genetic sequences and schematics, a testament to the enemy's relentless pursuit of power through genetic manipulation. "Look at this," Maya said, pointing to a section of the data that detailed the hybrid genetic enhancements. "They're not just combining abilities, they're creating entirely new ones. This could change the balance of the war completely." Jake leaned in, his massive frame dwarfing the monitors. "If they perfect this, their soldiers could be unstoppable. We need to find out how far along they are and what their next move is." Zara, ever the vigilant one, tapped her fingers against her chin thoughtfully. "There's mention of a central AI overseeing the project. If we can get access to that, we might be able to disrupt their entire operation." Eli nodded, feeling the weight of their discovery pressing down on him. The rogue AI wasn't just a tool, it was the mastermind behind the prototype weapon, a force that could tip the scales in favor of whoever controlled it. "We need to report this to Reed and figure out our next steps. If Gentek is advancing this quickly, we can't afford to wait." Reed's voice crackled through the secure channel, bringing their attention back to the present. "Good work, team. We're analyzing the data now. Based on what you've provided, Gentek is developing a weapon that combines multiple genetic enhancements to create super soldiers with unprecedented capabilities. This is a game changer." Eli felt a surge of determination. "What's our move, sir?" Reed's response was swift. "We need to locate their main AI core and shut it down. Without it, their operations could collapse. However, this mission will require precise coordination and stealth. We can't afford any mistakes." The room fell silent as the team absorbed the gravity of the mission. Eli felt the familiar rush of adrenaline mixed with a knot of anxiety in his stomach. They had faced formidable foes before, but taking down a central AI was a different challenge altogether. "We'll need to gather more intel," Eli suggested. "Dr. Hart might have insights on how to approach their AI systems." Dr. Lila Hart, who had been quietly working at the far end of the room, looked up from her workstation. "I can analyze the AI protocols based on the data you've provided. If we can understand its architecture, we might find a way to infiltrate and disable it remotely." "Good idea," Reed agreed. "Coordinate with Dr. Hart and outline a plan. Time is of the essence." As the team began to strategize, Eli couldn't shake the lingering thoughts about Derek. His betrayal had left a scar, a reminder that not everyone infused with genetic enhancements remained loyal. Trust was fragile, and Eli knew they had to remain vigilant against any further infiltrations. Over the next few days, the team worked tirelessly, piecing together the intricate details of Gentekka's operations. Dr. Hart's expertise proved invaluable, allowing them to map out the AI's network and identify potential vulnerabilities. They discovered that the AI was deeply integrated into Gentekka's systems, controlling everything from genetic experiments to battlefield strategies. "We need to create a digital backdoor," Dr. Hart explained during one of their late-night sessions. "If we can introduce a virus into their network, we can gain access to the AI's core programming. From there, we can shut it down or at least disrupt its operations." Jake scratched his head thoughtfully. "What about physical access? We can't just hack into their systems from the outside." Eli considered the options. "We might need to send a small team inside to plant the virus directly into their network. High risk, but if we time it right, we could catch them off guard." Reed reviewed their plans meticulously, ensuring every detail was accounted for. "We'll need a diversion to draw their forces away from the AI core. Maya, Zara, and I will handle the diversion. Eli and Jake, you're with me. We'll create a distraction while Dr. Hart and the rest of the team work on deploying the virus." As the mission day approached, tension within the team was palpable. Each member understood the stakes. Failure wasn't just a setback, it could mean the end of their efforts to restore balance in the genetic war. Eli took a moment to gather his thoughts, reminding himself of the importance of their mission and the lives depending on their success. Under the cover of night, the team moved into position. Maya's camouflage abilities allowed her to blend seamlessly into the shadows, becoming an invisible specter that only Eli's enhanced senses could detect. Zara's acute hearing and smell kept them aware of any approaching threats, while Jake's formidable strength provided the muscle needed to execute their plans. The diversion was set off with precision. Reed, Maya, and Zara orchestrated a series of explosions and electronic disruptions at the facility's perimeter, drawing the bulk of Gentekka's forces away from the central AI core. Eli and Jake, equipped with grappling hooks and stealth gear, made their way toward the main building, their movements synchronized and deliberate. As they infiltrated the facility, the oppressive atmosphere of Gentekka's operations weighed heavily on them. The air was thick with the hum of machinery and the scent of chemicals, a stark reminder of the unnatural experiments taking place within these walls. Eli's spider senses were on high alert, every sound and movement amplified as they navigated the labyrinthine corridors. They reached the AI core, a heavily fortified room at the heart of the facility. The door was guarded by advanced security systems, but Eli's expertise in web manipulation provided them with a crucial advantage. He swiftly spun a series of intricate webs, creating a path that allowed them to bypass the security measures undetected. Inside the core, the AI's presence was palpable. The room was filled with servers and holographic displays, the air buzzing with the energy of countless data streams. Dr. Hart was already at work, her fingers dancing over a portable terminal as she began to upload the virus they had developed. "Almost there," she murmured, her eyes focused on the screen. "Once this is in, we can initiate the shutdown sequence." Eli and Jake stood guard, their heightened senses on edge for any signs of intrusion. The tension was thick, each second stretching into an eternity as they awaited the completion of their task. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the facility, red lights flashing in rapid succession. "We've been detected," Reed's voice crackled through their earpieces. "Gentekka's forces are converging on our position. We need to move, now." Eli felt a surge of urgency. "Hurry, Dr. Hart. We don't have much time." Dr. Hart glanced up, her expression grim. "I'm almost there. Just a few more seconds." Before she could finish, the room was plunged into chaos. Gentekka's elite soldiers stormed the AI core, their genetically enhanced abilities making them formidable adversaries. Eli and Jake sprang into action, their training kicking in as they engaged the onslaught. Eli's webbing flew with precision, binding enemies and creating barriers to protect Dr. Hart as she worked furiously to complete the upload. Jake's brute strength was on full display, incapacitating foes with powerful blows and relentless determination. The team fought valiantly, each member pushing their abilities to the limit in the face of overwhelming odds. Amid the chaos, Eli caught sight of a familiar figure moving through the fray: Derek. His heart sank as he realized the traitor was here, aiding Genteka's forces directly. "Derek," he shouted, trying to break through the melee to reach his former friend. Derek's eyes met Eli's, a mixture of anger and sorrow reflected in their depths. "Eli, you should have stayed out of this. You and your team are a liability." Eli felt a pang of sadness and frustration. "Why, Derek? We were supposed to be on the same side." Derek smirked, his movements fluid and deadly. "The war is bigger than us. Gentek promised me a future, something beyond what our unit could offer." Before Eli could respond, Derek launched himself at him, their enhanced abilities clashing in a brutal confrontation. The room seemed to close in around them, the sounds of battle fading as their personal conflict took center stage. Eli struggled to keep his footing, relying on his agility to dodge Derek's relentless attacks. Webbing flew in every direction, binding and ensnaring as they fought fiercely. Memories of their camaraderie surfaced, making the fight all the more painful. "Derek, think about what you're doing," Eli shouted, desperation lacing his voice. "This isn't the way." Derek's response was a snarl as he pressed forward, determined to prove his allegiance to Gentek. "It's the only way. The genetic war is inevitable, and Gentek is leading the charge. You and your team are just remnants of a failed resistance." Eli struggled to keep his footing, relying on his agility to dodge Derek's relentless attacks. Webbing flew in every direction, binding and ensnaring as they fought fiercely. Memories of their camaraderie surfaced, making the fight all the more painful. "Derek, think about what you're doing," Eli shouted, desperation lacing his voice. "This isn't the way." Derek's response was a snarl as he pressed forward, determined to prove his allegiance to Gentek. "It's the only way. The genetic war is inevitable, and Gentek is leading the charge. You and your team are just remnants of a failed resistance." Their enhanced abilities clashed in a deadly dance, each strike from Derek met with a swift counter from Eli. The room echoed with the sounds of their battle: the swish of webs, the thud of powerful blows, and the occasional crackle of energy from the AI core's compromised systems. Eli's mind raced, trying to find an opening, a way to reach the friend he once knew beneath the layers of betrayal and Genteka's influence. But Derek was relentless, his every move calculated to disable Eli both physically and emotionally. As they grappled, Eli managed to land a powerful kick to Derek's side, sending him staggering backward. Seizing the moment, Eli spun a web tether, binding Derek's arms and restricting his movements. "Derek, please," Eli pleaded, his voice strained with emotion. "We can end this together. Don't let Gentek use you." Derek struggled against the webbing, his breaths heavy with rage. "It's too late for that, Eli. Gentek has already changed me. There's no turning back." Before Eli could respond, Dr. Hart's voice cut through the chaos. "Eli, the upload is complete. We need to shut it down now." Eli glanced over at Dr. Hart, her face illuminated by the holographic displays. The virus had been successfully deployed, but shutting down the AI meant immediate danger. The facility's systems were beginning to collapse, triggered by the virus's deployment. "Jake, cover us," Eli ordered, his focus torn between his personal conflict and the mission's success. Jake nodded, taking on a group of incoming enemies with ferocity. The AI core's defenses were failing, but Genteka's elite soldiers were still pouring into the room, driven by their genetically enhanced capabilities. Eli turned back to Derek, who was now trying to free himself. "Derek, please," but Derek's expression had hardened. "There's nothing left to save," he said coldly before lunging forward with a final, desperate attack. Eli barely had time to react, blocking the strike with his webbing and pushing Derek back. The room shuddered as the facility's structural integrity gave way, debris falling from the ceilings as alarms continued to blare. We need to leave, now. Eli shouted, gesturing for his team to retreat. Reluctantly, Eli loosened his hold on Derek, who fell to the ground, injured but still defiant. As the team made their way towards the exit, the AI core began to overload, systems failing and walls starting to crumble. Let's move, Eli urged, leading the charge as the team navigated through the collapsing facility. Maya used her camouflage to scout ahead, ensuring there were no remaining threats. Zara's enhanced senses kept them aware of incoming dangers, while Jake provided the necessary strength to clear their path. As they neared the exit, a massive explosion rocked the building, sending shockwaves through the corridors. The team barely made it outside, the night air a stark contrast to the chaos they had just escaped. Breathing heavily, they watched as the Gentech facility was engulfed in flames, the once imposing structure now a smoldering ruin. The mission had been a success, but the cost was palpable. The team stood together, battered but unbroken, knowing that their actions had dealt a significant blow to Gentech's operations. Good work, everyone, Reed's voice came through their secure channels. We'll debrief and assess our next steps. As the team regrouped at the extraction point, Eli couldn't shake the image of Derek's betrayal. He knew that Gentech's influence was widespread, and the fight was far from over. The rogue AI was still a looming threat, and without it, there was a chance to disrupt Gentech's entire network. Back at the base, the team was debriefed, and their findings were shared with higher-ups. The data they had retrieved provided crucial insights into Gentech's operations, revealing the extent of their genetic enhancements and the AI's role in orchestrating their strategies. Eli found himself alone in the debriefing room, staring at the screen displaying the mission's footage. Derek's betrayal weighed heavily on him, a stark reminder that the genetic enhancements could alter more than just physical abilities. They could change a person's very essence. Determined to understand the full extent of Gentech's plans, Eli approached Dr. Hart. We need to dig deeper into their genetic modifications. There might be more to their plans than we initially thought. Dr. Hart nodded, her expression serious. I've been analyzing the data, and there's evidence of multiple hybrid enhancements being tested. It looks like they're trying to create super soldiers with a combination of traits from different organisms, making them adaptable to any combat scenario. Jake, overhearing their conversation, chimed in. So they're not just enhancing individual soldiers, they're engineering a whole new class of combatants. That's dangerous. More than dangerous, Eli agreed. It's a game changer. If they perfect these hybrids, they could dominate any battlefield, making Gentech an unstoppable force. As the team continued to piece together the puzzle, they realized that Gentech's ambitions went beyond the genetic war. The AI, now destabilized from their last mission, could potentially seek to replicate and spread their genetic enhancements, leading to a global crisis. Eli knew that shutting down the AI was only the first step. They needed to ensure that Gentech's technology didn't fall into the wrong hands, and that meant a series of coordinated missions to dismantle their operations and neutralize any remaining threats. Reed addressed the team once more. We've got a lot of work ahead of us. Gentech isn't going down without a fight, and their genetic enhancements make them more formidable than ever. But with the intel you've provided, we have a fighting chance to take them down. Eli felt a renewed sense of purpose. The war was escalating, but so was their resolve to stop Gentech. What's our next move? He asked, ready to tackle whatever challenges lay ahead. We need to hit their research facilities, Reed responded. Take out their labs, disrupt their experiments, and prevent them from creating any more hybrid soldiers. Each mission will bring us closer to ending this war. The team prepared for their next mission, each member knowing the importance of their role in the larger battle against Gentech. As they geared up, Eli couldn't help but reflect on the personal cost of the war. Friends lost, trust broken, and the ever-present threat of betrayal were constant reminders of the stakes at play. But amidst the chaos, there was a glimmer of hope. They were making progress, and with each mission, they were dismantling Gentech's hold on the genetic war. Eli felt a sense of camaraderie with his team, a bond forged in the heat of battle and strengthened by their shared goal. As they set out for their next mission, Eli felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. The genetic war was far from over, and the path ahead was fraught with danger. But with his abilities, his team, and a burning desire to end the conflict, he was ready to face whatever challenges awaited them.